Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UES Defiant watching the massive alien ship approach through the viewport. The vessel looked like a giant crystal that had been carved by master artists. Blue and purple lights danced across its surface in patterns that made his eyes water if he stared too long. The ship was 3 times larger than his own vessel and moved with the grace of a living creature through space. Jake had been expecting this visit for weeks. The Zephyrian Empire had finally agreed to meet with human representatives to discuss a possible alliance. The Zephyrians were known throughout the galaxy as one of the most powerful and advanced species. Their empire stretched across dozens of star systems, and they had never been defeated in war. Most importantly, they had never formed an alliance with any species they considered inferior. The communication system crackled to life and a melodious voice filled the bridge. The translator worked quickly to convert the alien words into English. "This is Princess Lirelei of House Vortex speaking for the Crystal Fleet of Zephyr Prime. We request permission to dock at your station New Geneva for diplomatic talks as agreed." Jake straightened his uniform and activated the reply system. "Princess Lirelei, this is Captain Jake Morrison of the UES Defiant. You are most welcome. New Geneva Station is prepared to receive your delegation. We have set aside the entire diplomatic section for your comfort." 2 hours later, Jake found himself walking through the corridors of New Geneva Station toward the main conference room. The station was humanity's newest and most advanced diplomatic facility. It had been built specifically to host meetings with alien species. The corridors were wide and the ceilings were high to accommodate beings of different sizes. Climate controls could create different environments in different sections to make various species comfortable. As Jake entered the conference room, he saw that the Zephyrian delegation had already arrived. Princess Lirelei stood at the far end of the long table, and Jake had to admit she was beautiful in an otherworldly way. She was tall and slender with skin that seemed to shimmer like the surface of water. Her hair moved constantly as if it was alive, and her eyes were the color of deep ocean water. She wore robes that looked like they had been made from liquid starlight. Behind her stood 6 other Zephyrians who Jake assumed were her advisors and guards. They all had the same ethereal quality, but none were as striking as the princess. What caught Jake's attention most was how they all seemed to move in perfect harmony as if they were connected by invisible threads. "Captain Morrison," the princess said as Jake approached. Her voice was like music even through the translator. "I am honored to meet a representative of the human species. We have heard much about your people in recent months." Jake bowed slightly, which was the greeting protocol his diplomatic team had researched. "The honor is ours, Princess Lirelei. Humanity is eager to learn from the Zephyrian Empire and perhaps find common ground for cooperation." The princess gestured toward the chairs around the table, and everyone took their seats. Jake had brought his own small team, including Commander Helen Rodriguez, his second-in-command, and Dr. Carl Peterson, the station's head of xenobiology. "Before we discuss any formal agreements," the princess said, "I must understand your species better. We Zephyrians have survived and thrived for thousands of years because we are the most adaptable beings in the galaxy. Our bodies and minds change with the seasons of our world, allowing us to be perfect for whatever challenges we face." She paused and seemed to study Jake carefully. "Tell me, Captain, what makes humans worthy of alliance with the Zephyrian Empire? What special abilities do your people possess?" Jake glanced at Helen, who nodded encouragingly. "Princess, we believe our greatest strength is our persistence and our ability to work together. Humans don't give up easily, and we find ways to overcome obstacles that might stop other species." The princess smiled, but it didn't seem entirely friendly. "Persistence is admirable, Captain, but the galaxy is filled with persistent species. Most of them are extinct now. What we need to know is whether humans can truly adapt to different conditions and challenges." Before Jake could respond, the conference room doors opened and Chief Engineer Lisa Carter entered carrying a datapad. She had just come from the station's cold storage bay, where she had been working on repairs to the climate control system. Her breath was still visible from the cold and her hands were red, but she moved with perfect coordination as she handed Jake the pad. Princess Lirelei watched this interaction with interest. Your engineer was working in cold conditions, she observed. Yes, Jake replied. Lisa has been fixing some equipment in our cold storage areas. The temperature there is well below freezing. At that moment, Security Officer Ryan Blake entered from the opposite door. He was sweating slightly and carried a towel around his neck. He had obviously just finished training exercises in the station's tropical simulation deck where the temperature was kept at over 90 degrees with high humidity. Sorry to interrupt, Captain Ryan said. Just wanted to report that the security drills went well. All systems are ready for our guests. The princess looked from Lisa to Ryan with growing curiosity. One human works in freezing conditions while another exercises in tropical heat, and both seemed completely normal and functional. Helen Rodriguez nodded. That's correct, Princess. Humans can adapt to a wide range of environmental conditions without changing our basic nature or abilities. Interesting, the princess said slowly. On Zephyr Prime our bodies must change dramatically with each season. In winter we become slow and contemplative, entering a state similar to hibernation. In spring we become master builders and gardeners. Summer transforms us into fierce warriors and athletes. Autumn makes us brilliant scholars and artists. We are proud of this adaptability. Jake exchanged a look with his team. Princess, that sounds like an amazing ability. But may I ask what happens if you need to be a warrior during winter or a scholar during summer? The princess tilted her head, as if the question confused her. That would be impossible, Captain. No being can maintain all capabilities simultaneously. Even we who are considered the most adaptable in the galaxy must change to match our environment and needs. Dr. Peterson leaned forward slightly. Princes, with respect, humans don't change to match our environment. We change our environment too. Match our needs while maintaining all our capabilities year-round. That cannot be, one of the princess's advisors spoke for the first time. No species we have encountered maintains peak performance across all conditions without biological adaptation or technological assistance. Lisa Carter, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. I was just working in sub-zero temperatures repairing delicate equipment. Before that I was in the hot engineering bay calibrating plasma conduits. Tomorrow I'll be doing AVA work in the vacuum of space. I don't need to change my body or my mind for any of these tasks. Ryan Blake nodded in agreement. I can fight in desert heat or Arctic cold, rain or shine day or night. My training and abilities don't change with the weather or the season. Princess Lirelei stared at the humans around the table. For the first time since entering the room, she looked uncertain. You claim that humans can perform at peak levels in all environments and all seasons without biological modification? That's correct, Jake said simply. The princess stood and began pacing behind her chair. Her advisors watched her with concern, as if her behavior was unusual. After a long moment, she stopped and faced the human delegation directly. Captain Morrison, I find your claims difficult to believe. No species in our experience maintains such consistent adaptability. One propose? A test. Jake felt his pulse quicken but kept his expression calm. What kind of test, Princess? We will travel to the neutral world of Season's End. It is a planet with rapidly changing climate zones that cycle every few standard days. Your people will demonstrate these abilities you claim to possess, while my people show you what true seasonal adaptation means. Jake looked at his team and saw determination in their eyes. We accept your challenge, Princess Lirelei. The princess smiled, and this time it seemed genuinely pleased. Excellent, Captain. Prepare your best people. This will be most educational for all of us. Princess Lirelei stood at the observation deck of her crystal ship, watching the planet Season's End grow larger in the viewport. The world below was a patchwork of different climates that shifted and changed like a living kaleidoscope. Ice caps bordered tropical forests, while desert sands met temperate grasslands in impossible combinations. The planet's unique orbit and magnetic field created climate zones that rotated across its surface in predictable patterns. Captain Morrison and his team had arrived 3 hours earlier aboard a human transport vessel. The princess had been impressed by the ship's simple but effective design. where Zephyrian vessels were works of art that changed their configuration based on their crew's seasonal state. Humans built ships that worked the same way all year round. It was a practical approach that she found both admirable and puzzling. The princess turned to her chief advisor, Counselor Vortex, who stood behind her with the patient stillness that came with their current autumn phase. His mind would be sharp, now focused on analysis and planning. In a few days, when winter began, he would become sluggish and contemplative. Such was the way of their people. "Counselor, do you believe the humans will succeed in this test?" she asked. Vortex considered the question with the careful precision of his seasonal nature. Princes, their claims seem impossible, but their confidence suggests either great capability or great foolishness. "We shall know which soon enough." The princess nodded and activated the communication system. "Captain Morrison, this is Princess Lirelei. Are your people prepared for the challenge?" Jake's voice came through clearly. "We're ready, Princess. My team is assembled and equipped. We understand the rules: no technological assistance beyond basic survival gear and no biological modifications." "Correct, Captain. You will have 4 standard days to demonstrate your abilities across all seasonal conditions. My people will participate alongside yours to show you what true adaptation means. We shall see which approach proves superior." The princess had selected her own team carefully. Warrior Captain Zethric would excel once summer conditions arrived. Scholar Keeper Mylania would shine during autumn. Builder Artisan Corvith would dominate the spring phase. Elder Dreamer Suffix would guide them through winter with ancient wisdom. Each was the best of their kind in their proper season. 2 hours later, both teams stood on the planet's surface in what the locals called the transition zone. Here all 4 climate bands met, creating a strange landscape where snow fell while desert wains blew and spring flowers bloomed next to autumn leaves. The humans wore simple, adaptive clothing that could handle temperature changes, while the Zephyrians had selected garments appropriate for their upcoming seasonal transformations. Princess Lirelei addressed both groups. "The test begins now. We will move through each climate zone as it passes over this location. Winter arrives first and will last 18 standard hours. Then spring, summer, and autumn will follow. Each team must not only survive but excel in tasks appropriate to each season." Jake Morrison looked at his 4 team members. Sergeant Tony Parker was a former Marine who had served in conflicts across dozens of worlds. Agricultural specialist Amy Johnson had spent years developing crops for hostile environments. Research scientist Ben Davis had conducted field studies in extreme conditions from Arctic tundra to volcanic regions. Cultural attached Nina Foster was an expert in maintaining morale and communication during difficult missions. "Tony, you take point on shelter and security," Jake said. "Amy, handle food and water procurement. Ben, document everything and look for opportunities to learn about the local ecosystem. Nina, keep everyone's spirits up and maintain our coordination." Tony nodded and immediately began surveying the area. "There's a rock outcropping about 200 meters north that would provide good shelter and defensive positioning." "Amy, what do you think about resources?" Amy was already examining the strange plants that grew at the intersection of climate zones. "There are several species here that look edible, and I can see a water source running down from the ice zone. We should have everything we need." Ben had pulled out a simple tablet and was making notes about the unusual ecosystem. "The biodiversity here is incredible. Species from different climate zones are somehow coexisting. This could teach us a lot about adaptation." Nina gathered the team together. "All right, everyone, we've trained for conditions like this. We know how to work together and support each other. Let's show our new friends what humans can do." The princess watched this interaction with interest. Her own team was preparing very differently. As the winter zone approached, the Zephyrians began to slow down. Their movements became more deliberate and their speech patterns changed. Elder Dreamer Suffix stepped forward as his seasonal expertise became dominant. "We must find a place to rest and contemplate," he said in the drowsy tone that marked winter Zephyrians. "The cold time is for reflection and conservation of energy. We will build simple shelters and wait for spring." The first snow began to fall and the temperature dropped rapidly. The princess felt her own body responding to the seasonal change. Her thoughts became deeper and more philosophical, but also slower. This was natural and proper for winter. Yet, when she looked at the humans, she saw no such change. Tony Parker was moving with the same quick efficiency he had shown in the warm transition zone. He directed the construction of a shelter using techniques that seemed to draw from multiple climate experiences. Amy, this design worked great in the Siberian training exercise. Ben, hand me that support beam. Nina, can you check the wind direction? The humans worked together with smooth coordination while the Zephyrians moved with the careful deliberation of winter. Within 2 hours, the humans had built a sophisticated shelter that would protect them from the cold while allowing them to remain active and alert. The Zephyrians had constructed adequate but basic protection, designed mainly for rest and waiting. As night fell, the differences became more pronounced. The Zephyrians settled into their shelter and entered the deep contemplative state that winter demanded. They would spend most of the next 18 hours in quiet reflection and reduced activity. This was their strength, the ability to perfectly match their behavior to seasonal needs. The humans, however, remained active. Tony organized a watch schedule to maintain security. Amy identified several plants that remained nutritious even in winter conditions and began preparing food. Ben conducted studies of how the local wildlife adapted to the rapid climate changes. Nina kept everyone engaged with stories and discussions that maintained team morale. Princess Lirale fought against her own seasonal biology to observe the humans. She found it increasingly difficult to stay awake and alert as winter deepened around them, but she was fascinated by what she saw. The humans were not just surviving the winter, they were thriving in it. They maintained complex conversations, solved problems creatively, and even found time for recreational activities. She watched Jake Morrison work with his team around a campfire they had built. The flame danced in his eyes as he reviewed their progress and made plans for the spring phase that would begin in 10 hours. His mind seemed as sharp and active as it had been in the temperate transition zone. "How do they do it?" she whispered to Counselor Vortex, who was already half asleep beside her. "Perhaps, Princess," he replied drowsily. "They are not bound by seasons as we are. Perhaps they carry all seasons within themselves at once." The princess considered this as she fought to remain conscious. Could it be that humans had evolved beyond the seasonal limitations that governed most life, while other species, including her own people, became masters of one season at a time? Did humans somehow master all seasons simultaneously? As dawn broke over the winter landscape, the humans emerged from their shelter looking rested and ready for whatever came next. They had used the cold night hours to plan and prepare for the spring phase. Tony had scouted locations for expanded activities. Amy had identified the best spots for cultivation as the climate warmed. Ben had developed theories about the planet's unique ecosystem that he wanted to test. Nina had kept everyone motivated and focused on their goals. The Zephyrians emerged slowly from their contemplative state as the temperature began to rise and the season shifted toward spring. The princess felt her own mind quickening as her seasonal biology responded to the change. Soon Corvith, the builder artisan, would take command as spring brought the time for construction and growth. But as she looked at the humans, she realized they had not waited for spring to begin building and growing. They had been doing both all through winter while maintaining all their other capabilities. They were not seasonal specialists like her people. They were something else entirely. "Captain Morrison," she called as the snow began to melt around them. "Your people have impressed me during winter. But spring is the time for creation and growth. Now we shall see if humans can match Zephyrian artistry and cultivation." Jake smiled and gestured toward his team, who were already preparing for the next phase. Princes were looking forward to it. Amy has some ideas about working with the local plant life that she's been developing all night. The princess stared at him. All night. The humans had been planning and creating even during the season of rest and contemplation. What manner of beings had she encountered? The spring zone arrived like a gentle wave of warmth washing over the testing ground. Princess Lirelei felt her body responding immediately to the seasonal change. Her movements became more graceful and purposeful as the spring biology awakened within her. Around her, the other Zephyrians were transforming as well. Corvith the builder artisan stepped forward with newfound energy as his seasonal expertise took control of their group. Now comes the time of growth and creation, Corvith announced as his hands began to move with the fluid motions of a master craftsman. Spring is when we Zephyrians excel at building cultivation and artistic expression. We shall show these humans what true seasonal mastery means. Princess Lirelei watched as her people began their spring work. Corvith started designing structures that would blend perfectly with the emerging landscape. Other team members began identifying the best plants for cultivation and the optimal locations for gardens. Their movements were confident and sure because this was their season, their time of biological advantage. Yet when the princess looked at the human team, she saw something that continued to puzzle her. Amy Johnson was already working with the local plant life, but she was using knowledge and techniques that seemed to come from all seasons, not just spring. She examined soil that had been frozen during winter, identified plants that would survive summer heat, and planned for harvest during autumn conditions. These root vegetables will store well through winter, Amy told her teammates as she carefully transplanted seedlings. And if we plant them in this pattern, they'll provide natural cooling during the hot season while supporting the soil during heavy autumn rains. Tony Parker was constructing defensive positions and shelter improvements, but his designs incorporated lessons from winter survival, summer cooling, and autumn storm protection. This wall design worked great during the monsoons on Kepler 442. The drainage system will handle spring floods, but the thermal mass will keep us cool when summer hits. Ben Davis was studying the local ecosystem with the same intensity he had shown during winter, but now his research was building on observations he had made during the cold season. The way these organisms adapt to rapid climate change is fascinating. I think they maintain cellular mechanisms for all seasons simultaneously rather than switching between different modes. Nina Foster kept the team coordinated and motivated, but her approach was not specifically spring-focused. She used techniques that worked year-round, maintaining the same positive energy and clear communication she had demonstrated during winter. Great job, everyone. We're building on what we learned last night and setting ourselves up for success in summer and autumn, too. Princess Lirelei found herself staring at the human team with growing amazement. They were not just succeeding in spring conditions, they were excelling while simultaneously preparing for every other season. Their spring work was informed by winter experience and designed with summer and autumn challenges in mind. Corvith approached the princess with concern in his voice. Princes, the humans are not following proper seasonal behavior. They act as if all seasons exist at once within their minds. This is not natural. Perhaps, the princess replied slowly, it is more natural than we thought. Look at what they accomplish. By midday, the differences between the two approaches were becoming clear. The Zephyrians had created beautiful spring projects that were perfectly suited to current conditions. Corvith had designed elegant growing structures that would support plant life during the mild spring weather. His artistic eye had produced gardens that were both functional and beautiful. The other Zephyrians had contributed their own spring expertise, creating a small but perfect seasonal settlement. The humans, however, had built something different. Their shelter system could be quickly modified for summer heat or winter cold. Amy's agricultural work included plants that would provide food in every season and growing techniques that would work year-round. Tony's defensive positions offered protection against winter storms, summer floods, and autumn hurricanes. Ben's research station was designed to study ecosystem changes across all seasonal transitions. When the spring phase ended after 18 hours and the climate began shifting toward summer, the differences became even more dramatic. The Zephyrians had to abandon most of their beautiful spring work because it was designed specifically for spring conditions. Corvith stepped back as his seasonal expertise ended, and warrior Captain Zethrak moved forward to take command for the Summer phase, the humans simply adapted their existing work to the new conditions. Amy modified her garden layout to provide summer cooling while maintaining spring growth. Tony adjusted the shelter ventilation systems he had built into his winter designs. Ben continued his research observations, building on data from both previous seasons. Nina kept everyone focused and working together without missing a beat. Princess Lirelei felt her own body changing as summer approached. Her muscles became stronger and her reflexes faster as the warrior season awakened her combat instincts. This was how adaptation was supposed to work, each season bringing its own strengths and focus. Yet the humans seemed to carry the strengths of all seasons within them at once. Zethrak took command of the Zephyrian team with the fierce confidence of a summer warrior. "Now comes the time of strength and competition," he declared as his voice took on the commanding tone of his seasonal nature. "We shall show these humans what true physical prowess means." The temperature was rising rapidly as the summer zone settled over their location. Princess Lirelei felt the familiar surge of energy and aggression that came with summer biology. Her people were transforming into the warriors and athletes they became each summer season. Their bodies were stronger and faster, their minds focused on physical challenges and competitive success. Yet when she looked at Tony Parker, she saw something that should have been impossible. The human sergeant was not struggling to adapt to the warrior season. Instead, he was smoothly transitioning into combat readiness while maintaining all the other capabilities he had demonstrated in winter and spring. His movements were those of an experienced fighter, but his eyes still held the analytical awareness of a winter thinker and the creative problem-solving of a spring builder. "Zethrak," the princess called to her warrior captain, "challenge the human sergeant to combat trials. Let us see if they can match Zephyrian summer strength." Zethrak grinned with seasonal confidence. "With pleasure, princess." "Human, do you accept the challenge of single combat?" Tony Parker looked at his teammates and nodded. "I accept, but I suggest we make it more interesting. How about a series of challenges that test different types of ability? Not just fighting, but strategy, coordination, and adaptation." Zethrak's seasonal pride was stirred. "Very well, human. We shall have multiple contests. Combat endurance, strategy, and teamwork. Surely in summer conditions my people will prove superior." What followed was a series of contests that revealed the true difference between seasonal adaptation and human capability. In pure physical combat, Zethrak was indeed formidable. His summer biology gave him enhanced strength, speed, and aggression. But Tony Parker fought with techniques that drew from all seasons. He used winter patience, spring creativity, summer aggression, and autumn wisdom in fluid combination. The endurance challenges showed even starker differences. The Zephyrians excelled at summer activities like running, climbing, and swimming, but they approached each task with single-minded seasonal focus. The humans demonstrated endurance that seemed to come from year-round conditioning, combined with tactical thinking that never stopped adapting. Most revealing were the strategy and teamwork challenges. Zethrak led his team with the direct, aggressive approach of summer warriors. Their coordination was excellent, but it was specifically summer coordination designed for warm weather combat and competition. When the challenges included elements from other seasons, the Zephyrians had to struggle against their own biology to adapt. The human team worked with seamless coordination that never changed regardless of conditions. Amy used agricultural knowledge to identify useful resources during combat scenarios. Ben applied scientific analysis to tactical problems. Nina maintained team communication and morale under all circumstances. Tony coordinated their different expertise into strategies that worked in any season. Princess Lirelei watched the contests with growing amazement. Her people were not losing exactly, but they were being outmatched by the human approach. Whereas Zephyrians excelled in their proper seasons, humans seemed to excel everywhere all the time. During a brief rest period between challenges, she approached Jake Morrison. "Captain, your people continue to surprise me. They fight like summer warriors, but think like autumn scholars while maintaining the persistence of winter survivors and the creativity of spring builders." Jake smiled and gestured toward his team. "Princess, that's just how humans are. We don't become different people, with different seasons. We're always all of those things at once. But how is this possible? She asked. Every species we know must specialize for seasonal conditions. Even we who pride ourselves on adaptability must change our fundamental nature with each season. Maybe. That's the difference, Jake replied. You change to match your environment. We change our environment to match our needs while staying ourselves. The summer heat reached its peak just as Princess Lirelei felt her warrior instincts burning strongest within her blood. The scorching sun beat down on the testing ground where both teams had been competing for 2 days. Her skin shimmered with the heat-adapted biology that made Zephyrians formidable in summer conditions. Around her, the other members of her species moved with the fluid grace of natural-born fighters and athletes. Warrior Captain Zethric stood at the center of their group, radiating the confident energy of a being perfectly matched to his environment. His muscles rippled with enhanced summer strength and his eyes gleamed with competitive fire. This was his season, his time of absolute biological advantage. No species the Zephyrians had ever encountered could match their summer warriors in direct physical confrontation. Princess Zethric said as he gestured toward the human team, "These creatures continue to puzzle me. They show no sign of seasonal adaptation, yet they match our performance in every trial." Princess Lirelei watched Tony Parker lead his teammates through combat drills in the blazing heat. The human sergeant moved with deadly efficiency, but his approach was unlike any summer warrior she had ever seen. Where Zetherians fought with pure seasonal instinct, Tony seemed to be thinking and planning even in the middle of violent action. His movements combined winter patience with spring creativity and autumn wisdom while maintaining perfect summer aggression. The day's challenges had been designed to showcase Zephyrian summer superiority. Combat trials in brutal heat endurance. Tests under the scorching sun and complex athletic competitions that demanded peak physical condition. Yet somehow the humans were not just surviving, they were excelling in ways that defied everything the princess understood about biological adaptation. During the morning combat trials, Tony had faced Zethric in single combat 3 separate times. The Zephyrian warrior captain possessed overwhelming physical advantages, enhanced strength, lightning reflexes, and centuries of summer fighting experience. But Tony fought with techniques that seemed to come from every season at once. He used winter defensive strategies to weatherZethrac's aggressive attacks, then switched to spring mobility to create openings before striking with summer force guided by autumn tactical thinking. The matches had ended in draws each time.Zethrac's raw power and speed were matched by Tony's adaptability and strategic depth. More troubling for the princess was how Tony seemed to learn and improve with each fight, while Zethric remained locked in his summer warrior patterns. "Human," Zethric called across the training ground, "are you ready for the endurance trials? Surely your soft species cannot match Zephyrian summer conditioning." Tony wiped sweat from his forehead and smiled. "We're ready, Zethric, but I suggest we make it more interesting. Instead of just running, how about an obstacle course that includes problem-solving and teamwork?" Amy Johnson stepped forward. "I have identified several plant species that could provide hydration and nutrition during extended activity. We could include resource gathering as part of the challenge." Ben Davis pulled out his tablet. "The local ecosystem shows some fascinating adaptations to temperature extremes. We could study survival techniques while competing." Nina Foster gathered the team together. "Remember, everyone, we've trained in conditions like this on 3 different worlds. Use everything we've learned and support each other." Princess Lirelei found herself staring at the human team with growing amazement. They were not just preparing for summer endurance trials, they were incorporating elements from all their previous experiences. Amy was using agricultural knowledge gained during spring. Ben was applying research techniques from winter observations. Nina was maintaining the same positive team coordination she had shown in every season. Tony was planning strategies that drew from all their combined expertise. The Zephyrians prepared very differently. As summer beings, they focused entirely on physical prowess and competitive dominance. Their approach was direct and powerful, but it was purely summer-focused, without consideration for other seasonal knowledge or Techniques. The endurance trial began at noon when the heat was most intense. Both teams had to navigate a complex course across diverse terrain while carrying equipment and solving challenges along the way. The princes followed their progress from an observation platform equipped with cooling systems to protect her from the brutal temperature. The Zephyrians started strong. Their summer biology gave them tremendous advantages in the heat. They ran with tireless energy, climbed obstacles with enhanced strength, and pushed through physical barriers that would stop most species. Zethric led them with the confident aggression of a natural summer warrior, driving his team toward victory through pure determination and seasonal superiority. But as the trial continued, the princes began to see the limitations of pure seasonal adaptation. When the Zephyrians encountered a puzzle that required creative thinking, they struggled because their summer biology focused them on physical action rather than mental flexibility. When they needed to work together in complex coordination, their warrior instincts sometimes conflicted with teamwork requirements. The humans took a completely different approach. They moved through the heat with steady efficiency that never seemed to vary regardless of conditions. When they encountered physical obstacles, Tony used techniques that worked in any environment. When they faced mental challenges, Ben applied analytical methods that drew from all his seasonal experiences. When they needed teamwork, Nina coordinated them with skills that worked year-round. Most impressive was how they helped each other. Amy identified desert plants that could provide cooling relief using knowledge that combined spring cultivation with summer survival and autumn harvest techniques. Ben solved environmental puzzles by applying winter research methods to summer conditions. Tony led tactical decisions that incorporated lessons from every season they had experienced together. By late afternoon, it was clear that the humans were not just matching Zephyrian summer performance, they were exceeding it through their integrated approach. They finished the endurance trial first and in better condition than when they started. More troubling for the princes, they seemed to be learning and adapting continuously rather than being locked into seasonal patterns. As the sun began to set, the climate zone started shifting toward autumn. Princess Lirele felt her body responding to the seasonal change. Her warrior instincts faded as scholar tendencies awakened. Her muscles became less prominent while her mind grew sharper and more analytical. This was the natural way, the proper biological response to seasonal transitions. Scholar Keeper Melania stepped forward to take command as her autumn expertise became dominant. "Now comes the season of wisdom and learning," she announced as her voice took on the measured tones of academic authority. "Autumn is when we Zephyrians excel at intellectual pursuits, artistic expression, and deep analysis. Surely in this season, we will demonstrate our superior capabilities." The princess watched her people transform as autumn biology took control. They became thoughtful and contemplative, focused on knowledge and understanding rather than physical prowess. Their movements became more precise and deliberate as scholarly instincts replaced warrior reflexes. This was their strength, the ability to perfectly match their nature to seasonal demands. Yet, when she looked at the human team, she saw something that continued to defy her understanding. They showed no signs of seasonal transition. Ben Davis was conducting research with the same intensity he had shown in previous seasons, but now his work was informed by winter observations, spring discoveries, and summer experiences. His autumn studies were building on a foundation of year-round learning rather than starting fresh with seasonal biology. Nina Foster was creating artistic documentation of their experiences, but her work incorporated cultural elements from every climate and season they had encountered. Her autumn creativity was not separate from her other capabilities but was woven together with them into a seamless whole. The intellectual challenges began immediately. Scholar Keeper Melania designed complex problems that would showcase Zephyrian autumn superiority, mathematical puzzles that required deep analytical thinking, artistic challenges that demanded creative expression, historical research that called for scholarly investigation, cultural interpretation that needed subtle understanding. The Zephyrians approached these challenges with the focused intensity of their autumn nature. Melania led them through complex intellectual exercises with the confidence of a being perfectly adapted to scholarly seasons. Their analytical capabilities were impressive, and their artistic sensibilities were refined. They demonstrated the kind of autumn expertise that had made their species respected throughout the galaxy, but the humans once again took a different approach. Ben tackled the mathematical puzzles using methods that incorporated practical experience from all their previous trials. His solutions were not just theoretically correct, they were informed by real,